If you okay, hi everyone. If you go to the link up there and sign in, you can possibly win a $10 gift card, and it really helps us out. So it's just bit.ly, then Fanini-SUW. It'll take about 30 seconds if you just sign in. Okay, so we'll just get started now. So Chris is the co-founder and CTO of Weebly, a tech startup based out of San Francisco. More than 2 million people have created a website with Weebly, and 12% of the US population visits a Weebly website every month. Chris is from Bucks County, Pennsylvania, and while in high school started a web hosting company, followed by one of the area's first ISPs, which provided high-speed internet and voice services to small businesses who couldn't get access to cable or DSL. Chris went on to study IST at Penn State, then moved to San Francisco with his co-founders to start Weebly, which we'll talk about here today.
Cool. Great. Thank you. All right, guys. First off, it's great to be back here. Always awesome to come back. It's been a while. I feel so old now. It's been like 10 years since I've officially been here. Anyways, so how many of you guys have heard of Weebly before today? Just like a show of hands. Awesome. Cool, cool. So I thought what would be interesting to do here is actually show, or rather talk a bit about the history of Weebly and kind of how we got started, because it did start at Penn State, and just kind of take you through the history of Weebly. And then what I think is more interesting than me just standing up here and presenting for an hour or however long time I have here is more interactive, so kind of questions. So I'd like for you guys to start thinking of questions and things that you might want to kind of pick my brain on. I know this is design development class, I believe, right? So anything related to that, or anything related to sort of how we do things at Weebly, or questions around startups, anything like that. So happy to answer them. But what I'll do is take you through kind of the history, and then we'll go from there. So Weebly is, at the core, it's the easiest way to create a beautiful site or store. So that's sort of what we are, right? I mean, that's what the product is. It's a really simple way for anyone to get started. We really think that entrepreneurship is great, and we have a ton of entrepreneurs that use Weebly to build their businesses, and that's kind of how we gear our platform in the most basic sense. So our mission is really to help the world's entrepreneurs succeed, and that's where it comes from. So we've got a couple really interesting companies that have used Weebly to build their sites and their businesses. So I wanted to touch on a couple of those. One of them is the Whiskey Ball, which is a really cool product that this guy Caesar developed in his garage. It's a mold for building ice cubes, right, for whiskey, these round ice cubes. And so he started up, kind of built this business on his own by himself, brought in a friend, needed a website, used Weebly, put a whole store online, and now he's selling tons of these things. Another one really interesting you might have seen on some of our TV commercials is Bruno. So this is Michelle. She builds handmade leather goods, so bags and purses and all sorts of leather goods. And again, same thing, right? She had this idea, wanted to start her own business, got started, needed a website, needed a web presence, needed a way to sell her products online, and give her the ability to reach out to the rest of the world and sell her products. So she chose Weebly. And then there's two other ones I just kind of want to highlight. So this one's really cool as well. Our table, so it's local, kind of farm-to-table vegetables delivered right to your door. Same thing. It was, I believe, a husband and wife who wanted to, put their small hometown business online and make it sort of accessible to everyone else in the world and in the country. And then the last one is Boulder Board. So longboard company. They build these really awesome custom longboards, and they use Weebly. They use our e-commerce platform to sell these things all over the world. So with that, kind of just going through our story, it's really interesting. We started, Dave, Dan, and myself, Weebly in Penn State, at Penn State here back in 2006. So, we started here, right here. We all met through mutual friends at Penn State. We'd been here. Our senior year is kind of, I guess junior, senior year is sort of when we really started to make a lot of progress with Weebly. So February 2006 is when we really kind of got into it. August 2006, 6 months in, you can kind of see. So this is a graph of signups. So this is sort of going to tell the story here. This is the number of people signing up to Weebly. We had a product at this point in time. We allowed signups. We allowed people to come in and test it out. And so you can see, handful of people. Most days, 0 people were signing up. There was no one actually using the platform, other than, our friends, family, and ourselves. Half of these are probably like test accounts, and the other half were, again, friends and family. So kind of interesting to see that. October 2006, 8 months later, you see there's a little bit more activity again as we're sort of trying to get our name out there. We're on forums like web hosting forums, web design forums, like Drupal forums, CMS forums, saying, hey guys, check out this cool new product, Weebly, under the guise of someone else, like, hey, this is really neat, I use this, it's great. Doing our best, right? And we got a little bit of traction, but nothing really major, right? So again, you're still on average maybe 1 or 2 people per day here, right? And again, this is 8 months of working on this. We're just working on this thing every day, right? And we're just trying to sort of get our name out there and get excitement, generate excitement around Weebly. So then around that time, we applied to Y Combinator. I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with Y Combinator, but it's a seed stage kind of venture firm, so to speak. They give you a little bit of money to take your idea and focus on it and try to grow it to the next level. So we applied. We had about an hour to go. David filled out the application. He called me. I was like checking my mail at the Graduate or something, and he said, hey, Chris, do you want to drop out of school and move to San Francisco and just like continue working on Weebly full time? And I thought about it, and I'm like looking at the mailbox. He's like, yeah, sure, why not? He's like, all right, this is great. He's like, because I put your name on this application and I'm submitting it right now. I think he had already submitted it. Same thing, called Dan. Dan, do you want to drop out? Do you want to like just drop everything and move to San Francisco? And Dan was like, I just like study abroad thing lined up, but let me ask my parents. I'm like, all right. He still put Dan's name on the application and submitted it. So from there, we went for an interview for Y Combinator. While we were going through the interview process. It was in Boston. We actually got TechCrunched, which, if any of you are familiar with TechCrunch, it's a really great tech blog. It was in its infancy then. It's pretty popular now. They cover a lot of new startups, new technologies, new companies, a lot of SaaS businesses, software as a service businesses. So this was timing. It was total coincidence, right? But we got put on the front page of TechCrunch. This is when we had like 2 servers. I woke up in the middle of the night in a hotel in Boston, like everything's like on fire, it's like burning, and just things. The site was not. I couldn't even stay up, and that's why you see these like huge spikes in traffic. So normally, you'd see a huge sort of uptick in new signups, and then it would immediately drop back down. And here, what happened was it was a little flaky in the beginning because we couldn't handle the traffic, and then it sort of leveled off because we quickly put out basically like a capture system where we capture your email address and say, hey, thanks for signing up, but we can't really let you in right now. We're doing like an invite-only system, so we'll give you an invite when the service is ready. And it was solely because we just couldn't handle the traffic, right? So then what we did is we slowly let out invites, and that's why you sort of have that little plateau there. So that was fun, and it added some credibility to our interview as well, because when we were in this interview, it was like things were kind of slow. We were doing the demo, and we had to switch over. We had a local demo set up. We had a laptop running, Linux, ran the whole stack, had Apache on it, Linux, MySQL, PHP, everything. It was ready to go locally just for this reason, in case we lost Wi-Fi or whatever. And so we went through. We had to switch over, so we said something along the lines of, sorry, we have to switch to our local version of Weebly because we're on the front page of TechCrunch, and we just saw a couple people in the interview were like, oh, that's really cool. We saw the green reflection of the TechCrunch logo on Trevor's glasses at the time. So it added some credibility to us, and which was great, much needed at the time when we just had this service that no one was really using. This is just a funny picture. We're in Boston with a friend of ours randomly. This is after we got accepted. So they were supposed to call us at 7 p.m. and tell us whether or not we were accepted. We went to this bar. We got dinner. It was like 7:30, no call. 8 p.m., no call. 8:30, no call. We didn't eat any of our food because we were like super nervous. And then 9 p.m. we got a call, and I think Paul Graham said something along the lines of, I'm here to end your college career. And he was basically like, listen, we want you to join Y Combinator, move to San Francisco, and drop out of school. we were ecstatic, right? I think we each did like 3 shots or something at that time. So, yeah, that's a terrible picture also, jeez. Then we moved to San Francisco, and this is 11 months in. So we moved out to SF, January 2007. Here, the traffic graph is looking, a little bit better, right? So you can see the spike from TechCrunch, and then now we've sort of settled at a new level, but things are still not great. Again, you're looking at probably 50 people a day, if that, signing up, more like 20. It's great, but these are just people kind of like kicking the tires, right? Testing it out. Again, this is still mostly word of mouth, like friends, just friends and family, and obviously a few more people than that, given the numbers. But again, no real traction here. And now we're, just to give you perspective, 11 months in, so almost a year of working on this thing nonstop. This is the apartment that we had in San Francisco. It's actually a really cool place, great view. It's dated by the TV and the 15-inch LED monitors there, or LCD monitors. So we had a 2-bedroom apartment. Dave and I had a room with 2 twin beds. Dan got the queen bed. I'm not sure how. I think like a coin toss or something. But so he got the queen bed. Dave and I were like high five distance. So the beds it was like we were back in college. So we could like high five each other. It's really weird. That was our apartment. So that's where we spent, every waking hour. We pushed the 3 desks together in the living room, and we just worked on Weebly, and that was our life, right? That's the view. So it was a really, really cool view from the balcony there. This is kind of neat. I built a little display, a little hardware display showing just basic stats. So it would rotate through between total users, logged in users, and then there was another screen that it would flip to, which had like the server load, which was always at like 0.00. So there's no one using it. So this is funny, logged in 3. I mean, you can take a guess who the 3 people logged in were. Remember the day it hit 4, we were like, oh shit, this is cool. Because again, people were signing up and they were like logging in and they were just like, close it because the product, just wasn't there, right? Or it was slow, it wasn't working right. So then we got TechCrunch again. We did a whole like rebranding of the interface. We spent a lot of time, we've been working on it again for like 12 months now, 11 months. And you can see that's normally what a TechCrunch looks like. So much higher, right? Because we could actually handle the traffic this time, and then right back down. So nothing really sustained. And then this was, so April 2007, we had less than $100 in our bank account, and we're kind of back to square one as far as traction and traffic. It's settled to sort of the same period that it was before that last TechCrunch. You can see some little spikes as other blogs picked up the TechCrunch posting, but it was pretty rough. I mean, we had no money. We'd burned through all of our capital from Y Combinator, which at the time I think it was $30,000 to live for 3 people in San Francisco for like 3 months. I mean, you can barely do that with 1 person, right? So it was pretty rough, and we were trying to figure out ways that we could, cut out expenses, and we pull out a calendar and we're like, all right, what are the expenses that we can live without, that we can or what are the bills that we can just not pay, and there'll be no real ramification or no repercussion for it, and what are the bills that we have to pay, like our data center, our bandwidth, that sort of stuff. We can't not pay those bills, otherwise the service goes offline. So it was rough. Around the time we were talking to a bunch of angel investors in the Valley and trying to figure out if there was interest, and there was, and we were kind of going back and forth, and later that month we actually raised it was like $650,000. This is what it took as far as paperwork to raise that kind of money. Tons and tons of paperwork. Nowadays it's much smaller. It's all done online through DocuSign, a lot of it anyways. But yeah, so that was, that kind of put us back on the map. So now we had money, we had capital to operate the business. We could kind of go back into focusing on the business and not focusing on how to stay alive, right? Then in May 2007, we were featured in Newsweek. This was a really cool article that was written about us. Again, another thing that kind of really added some legitimacy to what we were doing, especially as funny as it sounds to like our parents, our family, because as far as they were concerned, we were all out in San Francisco fucking around doing, working on this startup, right? But what are we doing? We're just burning through money, and we're not really doing it. There's nothing to show for it, right? So this was cool. It was a magazine article in Newsweek, print edition. Remember Dan, I think, was in Italy for family vacation. There was like one of those little newsstands, and he went over to the newsstand, or his mom did, and they grabbed the Newsweek article and like flipped to the page that had our picture, and she was like showing the guy, like, look, it's my son, and the guy like looked at it, and he was like, $2 or whatever, whatever it was. He just didn't care. It was funny. But our parents were all very proud of us, and our friends alike, right? It was just kind of a neat thing. And this, again, this sort of press, it takes time. It's kind of lagging, but it builds, over time. Other people pick up on it, and so any press for us was great. So you can see what Newsweek did to the sign-up graph. So here we bumped up to a new level. So it's kind of like a, pretty big increase, right? We're looking probably 4x or so. And then it kind of held steady. But again, it's not, if you're looking at 300 to 400 people a day, it's not a whole lot. I mean, it's a lot of folks. But again, these people were churning out. They were leaving. They weren't really sticking with the service. We didn't have anything to sell them at the time. We didn't, the business, it was helpful, but it wasn't great, right? So again, to put in perspective, we're 17 months in at this point. Here's a picture of our living room from the other side. So we had a screen up on the left with some stats. We had our total number of users now, so 31,000 people that had signed up for Weebly, and then there were 34 people logged in. So pretty cool, 34 people at that point in time were actually using the service, building a website. But again, 17 months in, and we've got 34 people using the product. It's a long time. Here we are 18 months in. Time actually caught on to us. Again, this all sort of stemmed from the Newsweek and just in general, the more press that we were getting. Time voted us, one of the best website builders. They covered, basically the product and the team, and it helped, right? It was put us to another level there. But again, it's sort of tailing off. If you see, I mean, the numbers, they're starting to go back down. So we don't have that sort of hockey stick growth that everyone talks about with startups. And we're like, where's this growth? How are we going to get this? So 18 months in, still no real traction. We just kept powering through, right? We kept iterating on the product, listening to our customers. At that point, Dan was doing all the customer support. Dave and I were trying to bang out features and keep the site running. And we're just listening to our customers. Hey, what are people writing in about? What are people having trouble with? What do they really want to use our service for? What features can we build for them to help them succeed? And it worked. So October 2007, now what you see is that consistent growth kind of up and to the right. So now this is sort of hands off the wheel. This wasn't driven by another press article. This is now steady growth that sort of, culminated with all the articles and organic growth and people telling other people about Weebly and the website builder and just people being really happy with the service. So we kind of consider this your product market fit. So once you build something that people really want and really use and value, then they're going to tell other people, right? I mean, when you guys have products that you're really excited about using, you tell your friends, you tell your family. So this is what started to happen. And this is just, again, word of mouth. We weren't doing any advertising. We weren't spending any money on any sort of advertising. So really, really exciting at this point. But again, 20 months in, almost 2 years to get to this point of just continuous work, on the product. So we finally moved out 29 months into a real office outside of our apartment. Small, it's like a 1,400 square foot space, really cool. This is, makes it look really, really awesome, and then it's kind of clunky here. We had these $50 Staples chairs that were falling apart and IKEA desks, but this was a big deal for us, right? I mean, this is the business was growing. We wanted to hire some more people. First person we had hired, our designer Justin, who's still with the company. He worked on our kitchen table in our living room, right? So this was a big deal for us to be able to move out and get our first office and hire additional people to help us. So then 35 months in January, we ran into another issue. So we raised all that money, the $650,000, and we used that, right, for operations, for office rent, to hire additional people. I mean, we had, obviously with all that growth, we had additional server costs, bandwidth costs, all this stuff to operate the business. And so we were just slowly kind of burning through the money. This is a graph of our bank account balance. And we almost ended up back at zero again. So the same problem, right? But the cool thing is, this is where we turned the business model on. So we figured out, okay, we can charge customers. We now have product market fit. We have people that want to use our service. They're telling other people about the service. Clearly there's value to it. So if there's value to it, why aren't we charging for it? These people be willing to pay. If there's value to something, you're willing to pay for it, right? So we flipped on, I forget exactly what it was, but we started charging for premium accounts and starting selling domain names. And boom, there you go. So we're starting to make some money. So now we're actually putting money in the bank while covering all of our expenses. And you can see the line is much steeper than the decline. And we're obviously there's burn in there, right, to cover salaries and whatnot. So super exciting. Again, 35 months in until we had a working business, just to put it in perspective there. And then 48 months in, again, that graph is just up and to the right. You know, now we're seeing, 4,500, 5,000 people a day that are signing up, using the service. Of that, a portion of those folks are now paying us, which is contributing to, the revenue and the money we're able to save and put in the bank and grow. So 61 months in, we raised money from Sequoia, arguably one of the best venture capital firms in Silicon Valley. It's been great having them as a partner. We've got Roelof on our board. Roelof was CFO at PayPal. I mean, these guys are all operators. They've been through, businesses before. They've supported many startups in the past. It's a great partner for us to have. So that was awesome. So then, at that point, it was really just all about growth and hiring and just, figuring out how to scale the business. And then the product is working, and obviously we still need to iterate on the product. We're a product company. We really focus on the product, the usability, the simplicity of the product. So we continue on that, and with the help of obviously all the capital that we've raised. So 65 months in, we've now moved to a bigger office. So this is our, prior office to the one we're in now, but we moved to a really great spot down the street from our first office, but it went from 1,400 square feet to 11,000 square feet. We were able to hire 70 people in this space. Mostly engineering and operations folks there. Another cool picture of the office. And then 100 months in, we are, this is July 2014. We opened an office in Scottsdale. Pretty cool. So this is all of our customer success group. We do a QA there. We have folks that are on the phones. If you call into Weebly and you have questions or you want technical help, these are the guys that answer the phones, the folks that help that help you with your site. Help you with anything that's related to your account. Moved to our current office on 2nd and Bryant. So this is a huge space. Its total space is like 60,000 square feet there. So we'll grow to 450 folks just in this office alone, which is pretty cool. So you can see once you have a working business model, all of a sudden you can do all these things, right? You can hire, you can grow the company, and a sort of snowball effect there, right? So where are we now? We're in San Francisco. We're in Scottsdale, like I showed you. We have an office in New York City where we do engineering and design from, and business development. We have an office in Berlin as well, European headquarters. So we're moving more into the international space, which is really fun for us, and it's a new challenge, right? So we've got more than 30 million people that use Weebly. I'm not sure what the most recent public number was, but there's a lot of folks that use the platform. We have over 250 million monthly visitors to Weebly website. And the number really, what it boils down to is about 33% of the United States visits a Weebly website every month. So it's pretty neat. I mean, there's a ton of sites out there that we support. So it's really cool. So with that, we're cash flow positive. We've been since 2009, which is a great place to be. And there's a lot of companies out there that takes them even longer than it took us to get to that point. So we're very grateful for that. And then at the end of the day, it's all about the people that we have, working with us, our team. And we have a great motto, which is radical respect plus honesty equals trust. And this is sort of what we instill throughout the entire organization, the whole entire company. So a great example is, new employee at Weebly gets a company credit card. And we trust you with that, right? I mean, you get your own credit card. It's, we have trust that you're going to use that and make the right decisions. We trust that, when you're hiring someone for your team, that you're going to make the right call, that you're going to, obviously use your best judgment. So we really, really place a lot of respect, and it's important to help grow the company that way. And then our motto, I think I touched on earlier, but it's just simplicity in everything. So that's how we've built Weebly. That's how we think about everything. So from the organizational structure, we think, like, how can we make this really simple and efficient? From the product, how can we make the product super simple and easy to use? When we're designing a new feature, even if someone's done it before, it's like, well, how would we rethink this and do it in such a way that it's like really simple and easy to use? And that's served us well, and that's one of our big differentiators. A lot of folks say that, they make things easy to use, right? I mean, that's kind of like table stakes, like easy to use. Of course it's easy to use, right? But to really take simplicity in everything and push that across the board everywhere within the company, everywhere from engineering, operations, IT, finance, legal, everything we do. We try to keep it simple and effective, and that's just gotten us really far, and it's really, really important. So with that, I just wanted to touch on, well, rather show a video. This is kind of a cool thing. It just talks about, it's from the end of last year, but it talks about who some of our customers are that are using Weebly, some of our entrepreneurs. I'm not sure if the audio is going to work, but I would assume it will.
It sort of started off as a little hobby. We really like to drink cocktails and we really like to entertain. Eventually people started paying us, and then here we are today.
We want to see if we can become traveling bartenders all over the world.
It is tough being a full-time working mom, but it's tough being a full-time mom, and it's tough just being a working woman.
We open up the website in the morning and look, we have one from Sweden. Oh, look, we have one from Iceland. We'll never get to any of those places, but we feel like we are.
The corporate life was very stressful, and there's a lot of anxiety, and I felt a lot of stagnation in that. And now with Baptical Teas, I now have control over my life.
This is the basement of my house. It's the P's and Q's press. It's my letterpress shop. It just makes me happy to do this.
I started looking into it for my son who had eczema, and everyone was telling us, well, you should really start selling this. This is a cool product. And we did, and it just boomed.
I thought we were going to sell 100 in 1 year. I didn't know it could be 100 sometimes in one day.
We had no intentions and no idea today we would be dreaming bigger and thinking of the future of how we can grow it.
People can look at our work and say, this is good work. This is done by 2 young people, 2 gay people, 2 women. We're a lot of minorities, and I think we're proud of all of them.
When you realize that you could change your life and do something you're passionate about every single day is unbelievable, truly unbelievable.
So I think that really sums it up. That's what we're all about. I mean, every day, everyone who works at Weebly, this is what we're all about, right? This is what we're empowering folks like this around the world, to really get up and do what they're passionate about and dream big, as we say. So yeah, with that, would love questions, about, again, anything that you guys might have on your mind or anything that I could help with. I'm here, so fire away. Sure. How did I come up with the name? It's a funny story. So, as you know, it's really hard to get a domain name. Most names are owned by someone. So we built a little program. Dave actually built a little Perl script that just ran through a combination of different constant and val, and then hit them against the Whois server to see which ones were available. And it spit out a list of, I think it was 25 names. Then we narrowed it down, and it was between Weebly and the other one was Muvu, and Weebly just had a good ring to it. I think Dan coined the term. He's like, oh, Weebly, web creation made easy. Yeah, cool, awesome. So that was it. Yeah. Awesome. Sure. Totally.
What did you do in that situation?
Yeah, so the question, were there times where we thought we weren't going to get anywhere and kind of felt like giving up, and what would we do in a situation? Yeah, I don't think giving up was ever really an option, but there were certainly some pretty dark moments, especially when we're out of money and we're just you need money to survive and to cover your living expenses, and we didn't have it, right? And we're like, but we got this product that we're working on. It's really, really, it's awesome, right? But if you don't have money to support yourself and pay the rent and everything, it doesn't matter, right? So I think that's where, for us, having a really good, strong group of founders, I mean, the 3 of us, we could really rely on each other. So I like to think there's always a tiebreaker. Because you always have that third person. So in arguments, the person always helps sort of level everything. And also in a period of time where things aren't so great, you always have someone who's sort of optimistic and kind of helps put a different lens on it. So it was great. We relied on each other. We're practically married I guess we still practically are, right? But yeah, so. Sure.
In 2006, when you guys started out, did you guys have any idea 10 years down the line you guys would be here, or you had someone in mind?
So in 2006, when we started out, did we have any idea that we'd be where we are now? Yeah, I mean, we always believed that it was going to be something big, and that we were going to get there. I don't know that we had an exact, like, this is the target, this is where we want to be, this is the number of users we want to have, this is how much money we want to be making. In the beginning, it was more just we knew we were going to be successful in some fashion. I mean, we were going to freaking make it work no matter what, right? I mean, we were going to figure it out. So, yeah, we were all very, very, very driven to that. So, sure. Yeah, why do we pick Scottsdale? So we hired Alan. So Alan's our VP of Customer Success, and we basically said, Alan, he's got a lot of experience with this, with building, this part of the business. And we said, Alan, why don't you go and figure out what the best place to have this customer service center, this customer success center. So he looked at a whole, list of requirements, and I think we looked at, Tempe, Phoenix, Sacramento, Austin, Boulder, a bunch of different cities, and Arizona made the most sense, specifically Scottsdale. And a lot of it came down to the talent that we had access to from ASU, from the university. Just the quality of life and the cost of living was a lot less there. We've actually had folks move from San Francisco to there, and I mean, they were maybe barely affording to rent like a one-bedroom apartment in San Francisco. They moved to Scottsdale, and all of a sudden they're like buying a house, a 4,000 square foot house with a swimming pool in the backyard, and their mortgage payment is still less than their one-bedroom rent was. So, there were a couple different factors, but really just the talent, the quality of the folks we have there, the cost of real estate is much, much less expensive there. So, yeah.
What's the biggest problem you had scaling up?
What's the biggest problem we had in scaling up? The biggest problem, I think, for us, I'll say in hindsight, because hindsight is always 20/20. I think we didn't hire as fast as we probably could have or should have. We were always very proud and content that we had a small team and we were generating tons of revenue and the business was doing really well. And I remember talking to people and saying, yeah, but we only have 50 employees and we're doing X. And they're like, wow, that's really cool, but like you guys need to hire more. Like, well, why do we need to hire? Like we're doing so much, the leverage is there, and you need to sort of reinvest the money in the business, and that's something early on we didn't do until later. So that was a challenge with scaling and hiring, and yeah, that was kind of hard. Yeah.
I know it's kind of a general question, but
Sure.
it's really kind of important when you were starting to start, and you pointed out a couple of times too. I need advice about how to raise money when I'm starting my startup.
Advice on how to raise money. Yeah, I think actually David is going to be talking about this in the next talk, so definitely check that out. But advice on raising money, yeah, I mean, all three of us were involved in the process, especially early on in raising money from angel investors. And the advice is, be genuine, just figure out a really concise way to present your idea or your product. You got to sort of think outside of yourself. So it helps to pitch friends and people that are outside of your industry and make sure that they understand what you're trying to say. Because it's very easy when you're in it. Like, oh yeah, we're building like a website builder. It's like really, but we didn't say that. But it's all about your pitch and getting them excited. What's in it for them? Like, why is it going to be a huge business? What problem are you solving? Why is it disruptive? Why is what you're doing better than what's already been done? And just really thinking through that and practicing that pitch and just really understanding and believing in it yourself. And having a great demo is really, really important. I mean, for us, we did a demo where we rebuilt, I think it was Benchmark Capital, we rebuilt their website during our demo. So, and of course, we staged it, right? We had all the assets and we built the template, but we did it on Weebly. So we loaded Weebly, and then all of a sudden we're dragging and dropping their logo, we're putting their contact form up, and then we publish it. And we had like benchmark.weebly.com and their benchmarkcapital.com, and they looked identical, and they were like, this is awesome. Turns out they didn't invest. Sucks for them. But yeah. Sure.
What do you think the impact of social media is on startups today? And do you think if social media platforms were back then when you started where they are at now, would you have had an easier time?
So the question is, what do I think the social media impact on startups is today? And if the social media was, I guess, as prevalent as it was now back then, would it have helped us or hurt us? I think there are many different ways to look at that. And, for us, people always said, like, when we started, like, well, no one needs websites anymore. I mean, there's like a famous, I forget, it was somebody who passed on investing in us early on. He's like, websites are dead. We don't need websites. It's just like 10 years ago, right? And websites are still very, very important. Facebook came out with Facebook pages, and everyone was like, there goes websites. They're done. Like, no, they're not. I kind of look at it in the context of how would it affect our business. But in general, startups, social media, I think it's just, it's expanding the reach at which you can get an idea out there and present it to other folks and get other people to use it. I mean, the virality around it is just incredible. You could build something really, really cool, again, that's really valuable to people. You're solving a real problem, and you can now grow it, super fast with social media. Like for us, we had to like hustle on these like stupid forums, and we had to like spend all this time and energy to get people to use us and get that organic growth. But with social media, it's just so easy to share things now and get sort of social validation and just grow faster. So I think it's a great opportunity now, and I think it really helps accelerate a great idea, a great business.
Your mission and WeWork's mission of empowering entrepreneurs is very closely aligned. Have you ever looked at like a partnership?
Yeah. So the question is, it seems like our mission and WeWork's mission is very aligned and just helping entrepreneurs succeed. Have we ever looked at partnering? I don't know that we've ever looked at partnering with them, but there are a whole ton of folks that we could and do partner with that are sort of in the entrepreneurial space, as you call it. But yeah, I think things are really shifting when you talk about the sharing economy, and there's just a whole movement where people are kind of going back to basics and saying, well, hey, I have this really great idea, I have a talent, and I want to use that, and I want to build a product or a service and sell it and offer it to other people. And I think with social media and with obviously just the prevalence of the internet now and internet access becoming more and more widespread, you can do that. We're seeing a shift there. So
how important do you think it is to kind of keep tabs on your competition and also change your product based on the innovations that they're making?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, how important is it to keep tabs on your competition, and how closely do you follow them, and do you change kind of what you're working on based on what they're working on? So we've always looked at competition as you want to sort of be aware of them. You want to be aware of everyone in your space, but we don't make decisions based on competition. We don't. We've had some competitors make decisions based on us, for instance, and what happens is we spend a year developing a feature, we launch it, they see the feature, they're like, oh, wow, that makes a lot of sense. They spend 6 months building a really shitty version of it, launch it, doesn't work well. Meanwhile, they spend all that time, they're behind, and it's like this vicious cycle. So we don't, it's not something that we monitor like on a daily basis, but we're certainly aware of it. Especially, one of our biggest competitors, Wix, is a public company now. So that's interesting, right? Because we can now look at some of their data and see, it's public. They report earnings. They report sort of how the business is doing. And it's cool. It's a nice gut check. Like, oh, cool. Looks like we're kind of doing the same thing here. But we've always been very independent and very focused on, really staying close to the customer and understanding what the customer wants. And as long as you have a really close connection to that, the people who are using your product, you really can't go wrong, right? Because they're telling you what they want. They're telling you what they need. And if you focus on that, then you'll kind of always, in my eyes, my opinion, you always kind of win in the end. So.
This is kind of a 2-in-1.
2-in-1, right?
What do you think is the most important advice for someone that wants to do startup? And then once they succeed, what do you think is the most important advice to give them?
So what is the most important advice someone who wants to do a startup, and then if they succeed, you're saying?
Well, like to keep succeeding, I guess. Like once they get to a good point to stay on top.
Find something that you're passionate about, that you really care about, and solve a real problem. And I'm a firm believer that stuff will fall in place. And then once it's working, and you have a business that's working, I guess I'm not sure exactly how to answer that, but you'll have a feeling that it'll feel different. The business will be working. It's gonna empower you to grow your business and hire other people and continue on that trajectory. I hope that's helpful.
I don't know if are you able to identify what it was about the original app?
Yeah.
What it possessed that was able to invoke the passion in the three of you to get you to want to go to San Francisco? And it's easy to see a slide where in 3 months you're seeing no growth.
Mm-hmm.
What was it in the initial application that was able to invoke that in you guys so that you stuck with it? Because that's the significant thing. I don't know if a 22-year-old understands the macroeconomic implications of a tool.
Sure. Yeah, so what was it in the beginning that really,
What brought that? Why did you love it? Was it
For us, again, it all comes back to that, like solving a real problem and a real need. And for us, we saw a lot of our friends at Penn State struggling to build websites, to put online portfolios on the web. I mean, back when we were here, a lot of the courses required, whether it was an English course or whether it was a comp sci or an IST, they required you to build some sort of online portfolio or put a web page up. And our friends were like, I mean, I think it's still the same today. You've got this like clunky SFTP server, with all this, all the case sensitivity. So if you index.html has a capital I, the damn page doesn't load. Like, people don't understand that. So we saw that struggle, and we said, man, this is like really hard. Why is this so hard? Our friends were coming to us like asking for help. So we're like, there's an opportunity here. So it actually started as just like a portfolio builder, drag and drop. But then there was a whole technology side of it that got us really exciting, which is like, let's really push the browser. I mean, back then, no one was doing drag and drop. Now it's super prevalent, right? No one was doing drag and drop interfaces. So it took a lot of work. I mean, I remember we could reliably crash Internet Explorer on Windows XP like all the time with like certain JavaScript that we were doing. I think we even got the freaking computer to like blue screen, like consistently. I mean, that's pretty cool, right? You're really pushing the limits of this thing. So that was just, all of that kind of together was really exciting for us and kind of kept us going. Yeah, so it was the innovation, it was solving a real world problem, really helping people, helping our friends, helping our family. And then when we saw that there were other people out there, obviously, that had the same problem, and we were able to empower them, it just adds a whole nother layer of sort of validation. And then when you get bigger, and now you have people like the video I showed you that are, building their entire business and life and supporting their families on Weebly, it's powerful. So, hey, good to see you.
If you're moving to San Francisco in a month, what neighborhood would you live in say the Marina?
What was the last part?
Don't say the Marina.
Don't say the Marina, yeah. So I guess you're looking to move to San Francisco. If you're moving to San Francisco, what neighborhood would you live in? Personally, I love North Beach, Telegraph Hill. That's where I lived. That's where our original apartment was. That's where our first office was. The Mission's really cool. Mission is very kind of up and coming. There's a lot of diversity and variety there. Yeah, the real answer is anywhere you can find a cheap spot. So go on Craigslist, find someone that's in a rent control building, is looking for a new roommate, even if it's only for 6 months, jump on it. Once you get in there, you can figure it out. But yeah, otherwise it's gonna be very expensive. So, sure.
So you guys started in Penn State, right?
Yep.
So what is the time commitment like between classes and academics and stuff?
Yeah, so what was the time commitment when we started here between classes? This is like one of those things, like it was every night, kind of late night, go to school during the day, come, in between classes, kind of work on. David started as a class project, so he was able to work a lot of it, during class and outside of class, kind of structured around that. But when Dan and I got involved, it was very much just sort of like on the weekends. And I remember we did, we were all in New York City for a summer. We all did internships there, and we just spent like every waking moment outside of our, sort of daytime commitments on Weebly. But again, it's not hard when you have that passion, and it's like, for us it was made sense, right? We wanted to work on it, it was like we wanted to do it. Yeah. So sure.
You said you dropped out. Why did you go back to your degree?
That's great. Yeah. So I dropped out. Why did I go back for my degree? Well, a couple of reasons. One, it's nice to finish something that you start. I spent 3.5 years at Penn State, and kind of sucked to just never close that chapter. And then my dad, he kind of held some things over my head. He said, listen, I was paying for your rent every month. If you don't graduate, like, I'm just going to retroactively, you're going to pay me all that money back. I was like, oh man, that sucks. But yeah, kind of making parents proud and just to finish it, And I personally, I wanted to have the Penn State degree for things like this, right? To be able to talk about, experience at Penn State, and I'm proud to be, a Penn State alumni, so alum. Another question?
Did you ever get noticed as being a Weebly founder while you were finishing up your last part of school?
Did I ever get noticed as a Weebly founder? No, no one knew about Weebly when we were finishing up school. Yeah. Now, some of the cool, like, I remember I was walking through the airport recently, and I saw, everyone's on their laptops. I saw somebody had their laptop open, and it was like they were working on Weebly, so that's super cool. Of course, no one knows who I am. I'm not like a, huge celebrity, right? Some people do, but it's just kind of weird. But yeah.
Can you talk about the promote launch and what went into that?
Yeah. Cool. So you must really follow us. That's awesome. Yeah. So you asked about our promote launch. So we launched a new product offering called Weebly Promote, which is basically like a MailChimp killer, we like to call it, style app that some interesting things around that. So we built that out of New York City. That was our New York office. Our engineering team in New York actually built that. It was kind of an experiment for us. Let's take a team that's in New York and just have them focus on this one product, just on their own independently, and see how it goes, right? And it worked out really well. And obviously there was a lot of back and forth with the other teams and design and everything. But that's been absolutely awesome. It makes total sense if you think about it. We've got people using our e-commerce platform. We've got people using forms to collect people's data on the website. So now imagine all of a sudden you enable this feature that allows email marketing to happen really easily. You can set up email campaigns and contact all your customers. And the cool thing is we have all the data already. We've been collecting it for years, right? So you just flick a switch and all of a sudden we've got all the email addresses from anyone who's ever emailed or used your platform, anyone who's ever purchased a product from you, anyone who's ever done a blog comment or a form entry, and we can expose all that and allow you to contact your customers. And there's some really great examples. Some of our e-commerce stores, they've used Promote early on as a beta customer, and they'll do an email blast to like 50,000 people, or I don't know, no, that's too high, probably like 5,000 people, and then the response rate, and you see them actually drive folks back to the store and make purchases. So it's really cool to see that. And again, it's just another offering that we have to help our customers succeed. So it's really cool to see that. Yeah, international when that started. Yeah, so international, for us, I think it's like 60% of our traffic now is international. So it's shifting. In the beginning, it's kind of 60-40 the other way around. Now it's 60-40 international. And we knew we wanted to focus on international, but again, because we had a small team, we didn't really hire, we don't have thousands of employees. We have to be very diligent about what we choose to work on, right? And international is important. So we hired a VP of international, focuses on that. Troy actually ran international for Evernote. Awesome guy. And we brought him in to kind of help just grow Weebly and help us figure out what it looks like to be international, right? And we chose Berlin as our European headquarters because Berlin is a really cool, up-and-coming, kind of really fun neighborhood, great place to be. There's great talent out there, engineering talent. The type of people that we want to eventually hire out there, are all in that area. And it's also, again, there's all the business cases for it, right? It's less expensive than other areas, and you compare it to London. Yeah, that's kind of our home base out there, and where we're growing a lot of the international presence. But it's important for us as we grow because, the rest of the world outside the U.S. is very large. Yes?
Have you ever had any security issues or attacks, DDoS, anything that brought it down?
Yeah, it's a great question. Yeah, so I can talk about that all day. That's so kind of a little bit quickly in my background is CTOs oversee our operations, DevOps, and IT. So all the infrastructure, data centers, all the back-end stuff that powers Weebly. So the question was, have we ever seen any attacks or security-related activity? And we do. On a daily basis, we get attacked. We see very large denial-of-service attacks in the order of 200, 300 gigabits per second worth of traffic that people try to fire at Weebly. And it's not always because they're trying to take Weebly down. It's just they're trying to attack one of the tens of millions of websites that we host, and we just happen to be collateral damage because we're the host behind there, so we have to deal with it. So I've got some of the guys on my ops team, and they spend a lot of time mitigating those attacks and coming up with solutions on how to better kind of harden the infrastructure so that we can withstand that sort of stuff. But I think it's fun. It's a cat and mouse game. I mean, you fix something and you come up with a way to prevent something, and then the attackers kind of change their strategy. And but yeah, we've focused a lot on that. We've got a lot of really cool technology that we've built in house, and some cool stuff that we leverage third parties that did help with attacks.
Zenefits just went through some recent issues with like compliance
Mm-hmm.
and that sort of thing. Obviously, different kind of business model.
Yeah.
Do you guys have any sort of continued training implemented with all the with your employees?
That's a great question. Yeah. So the question was, Zenefits went through. I don't know if you heard about Zenefits. It's a startup in the Valley. They help kind of deal with insurance, like purchasing insurance for your employees. And they went through some interesting regulatory issues and compliance issues. They built a system, a program that ran on everyone's computer that sort of faked their way through some of these tests that their employees were supposed to be taking. So not a great thing to do. But yeah, so we have compliance training. We do actually. Yes, for us, PCI compliance is a big one because we are accepting credit card information through our system, both for Weebly.com directly and then also through our e-commerce customers on their behalf, right? So we do training now around compliance and what that looks like, and how to basically notice certain things and how to report them, and the whole basically it's a series of kind of controls and procedures and documents and stuff that we make public to the whole company so that they can be more familiar with all this stuff, and we're required by law to train them on that. So, yeah.
Can you tell us about one time when Dan, David, and you had a conflict of opinion and had to decide what to do, and how did you resolve that?
Yeah, a time when we had a conflict of opinion between the three of us, and how did we resolve it? Yeah, I mean last week. It was hard because Dan was traveling. Dave and I were in the office, and we were trying to come to a solution. It's hard, right? You really have to step back, and the way I like to approach it is like, let's look at the data behind the problem, right? So because there's opinion, and then there's the facts, right? So I'm very sort of analytical, so I want to say, well, what's the data here? What are the truths, and let's go from there. But really, it's just you have to hear everyone out. I mean. So we listen to each other's opinions. We try to understand where they're coming from. Oftentimes when you're arguing, you're coming from a place of, you feel like you're being betrayed, or you're being taken advantage of, or something is near and dear to your heart is being poked at, or so you have to sort of take the emotion out of it, right, and just get down to the facts. So we try to do that as much as we can. Again, having three founders is really, I think, key for us because we always have that tiebreaker, right? Because the chances of us, all three of us, having the same opinion is, well, it's not rare, but it can be hard sometimes. Sure. Will Weebly enter the Chinese market in the future? We'd love to. We really would. I know. Yeah, our general counsel is there right now, and she can't use it either. But we have a VPN, and even that gets blocked. It's hard. China's just, we want to, and we partner with Tencent. Tencent actually invested in our most recent round. And then they've got a lot of cloud infrastructure that we can leverage, and they've got relationships with the Chinese government to help. I mean, the biggest problem in China is that China decides, who and when people can access services on the internet, and they filter everything. And just inherently, because we support so many websites, chances are there's a website we host that the Chinese government may not like. So what they'll do is they'll block the entire network because they don't really have a way to block a specific website. It's very hard to do. It's very computationally expensive. So yeah, short answer is yeah, we will. We want to. We absolutely do. But there's low-hanging fruit that makes more sense right now for us to put our efforts into.
Okay, would you be willing to give the Chinese government a way to block individual websites then?
We absolutely would, but it's tricky. So yeah, the question is, would we be willing to give the Chinese government a way to block individual websites? Yeah, we probably wouldn't give them a direct way to actually block the website, but we'd give them a form to submit a website that they think has offensive content. But it's tricky. We really don't want to be in the business of judging, which content is allowable and which is not. We never really want to do that. We receive takedown requests and legal notices all the time for websites on Weebly, and we have a whole legal team that we do everything in our power to keep those websites up, because we care about our customers. Even if some of these things are potentially controversial subjects, we're not in a position to judge the veracity of those claims. So, yeah. Sure.
Speaking of censorship,
Yeah.
When Weebly was blocked in India, what was the process? How was the process going through getting a channel?
Yeah. So Weebly was blocked in India. I think it was 2 years ago, around December. Yeah, December. So that was a big issue. That ends up. It's a problem. I mean, it shows up everywhere. Like our customer support, everyone's calling in or writing in. There's a problem. Lands on sort of my team's lap, the operations team, because it's kind of a network issue. So at first we think, okay, there's connectivity issues between us and India. So what do we need to do? Do we have to reroute some traffic, or what do we have to get in contact with certain providers? Are we being black holed by accident? But yeah, that was a tough one. We tried to reach out and get in contact with them, and it was really difficult because oftentimes there's not any specific place to go, right? The people that control that don't really make themselves known. But eventually, I don't recall exactly what the method of communication was, but I think they may have reached out to us, or we dug up an email from them about a specific site that they were worried about, and then we talked to them, and we worked through it with them, and they were helpful once they felt that we weren't ignoring them, because we really don't want to ignore them. But yeah, we worked through it, and for that it was kind of like I just mentioned. We said, listen, guys, here's an email address that you could submit at any point in time, 24/7, a website that you think is causing a problem, a phishing website or something that is a potential issue, and we'll look at it right away. And we got them comfortable with that, and then they unblocked us. But we've been blocked. I mean, AT&T blocked us at one point. That was a funny story. Really quickly, AT&T blocked us. So if you're on a cell, if you're on AT&T, cellular network, you couldn't view a Weebly website. If you had AT&T DSL at home, you couldn't view a Weebly website. So we tried reaching out. I had my group reach out. We got a hold of someone in their network engineering group, and they're like, okay, yeah, we black holed this one IP address because there was an AT&T, a website that purported to be an AT&T login form. It was phishing user credentials. Obviously a big deal. We don't want to host those sites. We take them down whenever we see them. But the guy was like, yeah, well, the guy who put the block in, he went home for the day. It's 5 p.m. We're like, no, you got to unblock this. The site's not even up anymore. Our Views team took it down. And I go, sorry, we can't help you. So we went back and forth, and we escalated it. We just couldn't get anyone to work on the problem. So we contacted Ruloff, who's on the board from Sequoia. I think it was Ruloff or Doug Leone from Sequoia as well. Happens to be really good friends with the CTO at AT&T. So he's like, hold on. So he's like, just stand by. So 5 minutes goes by. All of a sudden, we get a phone call from this guy. He's like, hi, this is Roger from AT&T. Listen, I don't know who you are or who you talk to, but I've got my boss on the other line, who's got his boss on the other line, who has his boss on the other line, and I'm not allowed to hang up with you until whatever issue you have is resolved. So what's the issue? And we're like, oh, thank you. Please unblock this site. He's like, okay. He's like, I'm literally not gonna hang up the phone. Just stay there. I'm gonna put you on hold. He comes back. He's like, all right, I have a network engineer who's driving into the office. I think it was 10 p.m. at night or something. He's driving in because they can only issue these commands from a local office or whatever. He's going in. Stay on the phone until he confirms that he unblocks he pulls the null route out. And we're like, yes. So it helps to know the right folks when you need them. So it's nice to have them there. Cool. Sure. What do I think makes a great CTO? I think, so for me, this has been, I'll start with a bit of a challenge for me. Early on in Weebly, I'm a very hands-on person. Early on, I built all of our infrastructure, all of our data centers, everything kind of by myself, right? And that was my passion. As we grow, now it's about finding the right people to do that who are smarter than you are, right? So for now, I spend most of my time just making sure we have the right folks working on the right problems, and make sure we can hire the right people. If you look at some of my teams, some of the smartest guys out there who are working on these teams, and it's all about leverage and just being good, great people skills, obviously great management skills, the ability to solve technical problems and understand at a high level, different problems and how they impact the business. So, for me, I spend a lot of my time just thinking through, like, where do we want to be in the next couple of years? And then how are we going to get there? How many people do we need to hire to get there? What kind of technologies do we need to be looking at, right? And I leverage a lot of my guys. We'll sit down and we'll say, hey, a great example is our storage infrastructure right now that we leverage. EMC, and it's very expensive, right? And we're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars a year in support contracts. So it's like, all right, we need to move away from this eventually as we grow. So, I leverage my team and we sit down and we work through, like, what are the other options and how do we look at other solutions and what makes the most sense from a technical perspective, and what's going to scale really well and what's going to play into our international presence and what's going to help when we do multi-data centers, right, and data centers in Europe. And just kind of working through all that and being able to have a good sense of kind of, what's going to work long term and what isn't. But at the end of the day, I think it comes down to just being technical and really great with people and knowing how to hire the right people and knowing, the difference between someone who's maybe not quite right for the job and someone who's, the right person for the job, and making sure that they're able to hire the right people and just scale the whole organization. Because the bottom line is there's just no way you can do everything yourself. It's really all about leverage and relying on other people, other smarter people. So
as you talked about, like, people, how do you look for the people, for the right people?
Mm-hmm.
So, and as a startup, you have limited resources in the beginning.
Yep.
What's the top quality that you're looking for when you have your first employee in the company? Do you base your decision on needs or quality of the person you're hiring?
Absolutely both. Yeah. The question is, what is the quality of the first person that you hire, and what do you base your requirements on? And yeah, it's needs. What do you need as a company? But it's a lot of it is the person and the personality, and someone, there's a couple of few key traits that we look for, and that's people that are passionate, right? Are they passionate about what they're doing, right? Do they generally seem like they make the right decisions, right? Are they if given a problem, do you think they would generally make the right decision? It doesn't always have to be the right decision, but in general, more often than not, do you feel this person would make the right decision? And this is all stuff that you sort of suss out when you're, in an interview, when you're talking to them, understanding and having them explain to you what, some of the stuff they've done in the past. But for us, it's like, if it's engineering, it's technical ability. We don't necessarily need to see that you came from a technical degree, so to speak, but show us projects you've worked on. Some of the easiest thing you can do, I think, for anyone, this applies to any company really, is show your prior work. Show a project that you did, that you spent time on, that you're really passionate about. Show your GitHub repository that shows all the code and something that you worked on. That's all anyone really wants to see, is that you have a passion for something and then you've got the right drive behind that, right? And don't be an asshole. Right? I can't, we do this really cool thing. We do what's called a trial week. Now it's a trial a few days at Weebly, where we bring people in who are promising. They go through phone interview, technical interview. And if you're promising, we'll fly you out. And you spend a week with the team, or the team that you're potentially going to join. And you get to interact with the team, and you get to interact with other folks in the company, and you get to have lunch with everyone. And, that is such a great process for both parties, for us to see if you're a good fit, right, technically, and also just to see how it is that you interact with other people. And it's great for you to say, oh, this is a place I want to work. This is a really fun environment. Or maybe it's not. Maybe for whatever reason it's not. We're biased, right? We think it's a great place to work, but maybe it's not for you. So it works out really, really well. But there was an example a couple years ago. We had like these two people that they were great technically. They made it to the on-site. They seemed like really smart guys. They were assholes. And my office manager at the time, I was managing the facilities and office team as well, and I remember she came to me and was like, listen, this guy's he was like an asshole, he was really mean to me, and we were like, you know what, that's it, you're out. So the guy made it like half a day, and we were like, see you later, because he was an asshole. So just don't be an asshole.
I want to ask, at the startup, when you hired your first employees, how did you hire them? How do you reach out to people and tell them that you have a job opening?
Yeah. So when you hire, as a startup, when you hire people, how do you reach out? How do you sort of get the pipeline going, right, of people? It's really hard, especially when you're a really small company and you just can't compete with, like Facebook or Google and like free lunch and all. We didn't have all that stuff when we first started, right? So it's hard. Like Hacker News actually was a great thing for us early on. We found, I think our designer, Justin, who again is still with the company. It's awesome. He, I think his girlfriend somehow found it on Hacker News and then like told him and like, you should check this company out. Like go check them out. So using your network. I mean, now we get a lot of people from referrals. One of the things when you join Weebly, we have this program called Total Recall where we sit you down and we're like, all right, tell us of your friends who you think might be a good fit for Weebly, and don't worry about it. Just give us their name and we'll do the rest. We'll contact them and we'll talk to them. So that's helpful as you get bigger, as you have that network effect. But early on, yeah, it's tough. It's tough. I mean, Hacker News again was great because it's a forum with people that are all of a technical mindset, and yeah, and some of the other great hires were just through friends of friends, and networking and being out there. I mean, that's the cool thing about San Francisco and the Bay Area in general is you're at a coffee shop and like 80% of the people there are in technology or in some sort of startup, and it's just you have all these encounters with people all day long that it really lends itself well. I'll do half my, I shouldn't say half my my week, but I would say like a good 20% of my week I'll spend meeting with other people in the industry or doing coffee with people and just to kind of talk, right? And sometimes it ends up that, oh, that person's looking for a new job and maybe they're a great fit or they know someone that's looking for a job. So just being connected and just being open to it.
Also, like when you just had your first few employees, like how did you manage giving them salaries and stuff? Because it's kind of tough as a startup, right?
It is, yeah, salaries for the first few employees. Yeah, well, we didn't pay ourselves anything for the longest time, and then we paid very little, just kind of what we needed to survive, and then we retained the rest of the money we had to offer salaries. It's hard. The cool thing is with the startup is you have equity, and that's really the value in a startup company is the equity. Salary, I mean, even if you're making, let's say, $100,000 a year, I mean, you're living in California, like after your 40% taxes, you're not saving any money, right? I mean, the real win for you is to put your blood, sweat, and tears into this company that you're passionate about, and hope that your work it contributes to the value of the company, and then in a couple of years, maybe it could be 5-10 years, you built something that's super valuable, and the company has some sort of exit or event, and your equity is worth something. I mean, the equity is where the real value is, and that's where arguably you're going to get the most compensation from that. So the original question. In the beginning, it's a trade-off. So we'll offer maybe more stock. Say, listen, we don't have a lot of cash, but we have equity. And if your lifestyle affords it and you can take us a lower salary and take more equity, I mean, that is freaking awesome. I would do that all day long, like if you can pull it off. I mean, live in your parents' basement, sell your car, whatever, get your monthly sort of burn down as low as possible, take a lower salary, exchange some of your salary for equity if you can. I mean, that's my opinion. If you're really passionate about the company and the space and you think it's gonna be, a game changer.
Obviously you were an IT person and not so much of a management person. So
Yeah.
do you ever have the urge to just go back to your roots and just
Yeah.
do hardcore programming?
All the time, yeah. So the question is like, I'm at heart, I'm kind of an IT technical person, not a management person. Do I ever have the urge to do it? All the time, yeah. And I have, I'll do like little hobby projects and stuff on the side that kind of like satisfy that urge. But it's hard. Yeah, it is hard. And the transition for me, which happened, the last couple of years into more management, has been a learning experience. I've never managed people before, right? So it's been an interesting experience. But it's fun because it's something new. It's a challenge. But yeah, the technical stuff, Unfortunately now, if you're not in it day to day, and if you imagine you've got 100 people working on a system that used to just be you, well, 100 people are going to make a whole lot more progress on that system, even in a week's time or a month's time or a year's time than you'd ever make. So things change very fast. So if I go in now, like if I go in and try to, something basic, right? Like I love networking and network engineering. If I go into one of our routers and try to mess around with something, chances are I'll probably break something. Because I just don't, not because I don't know technically, but just I don't know how the system has changed, right? Same thing if I commit code now. It's probably going to break something. It's probably something I'm missing, right, that someone else knows about. So it's hard, but projects help. Side projects help. Getting involved in other things help. Sure.
What do you like to see from kids graduating college from like a tech company?
Well, I'm sorry. What was the first part?
For students who are graduating from college, what do you like to see from them for applying for different tech?
Yeah, what do we like to see from students graduating from college, applying for a job? I mean, back to what I said earlier, we want to see something that you've worked on project, like a real life example. We want to see something that you're excited about, that you've worked on. I mean, if you know, unfortunately, it's hard to just come in with a resume and be like, you know, this is my experience. And the problem is you don't have a lot of experience right out of college, right? You just don't. I mean, you have a lot of theoretical experience. You've done some projects in class. But I think it's really important that you work on something outside of your core kind of curriculum, like a side project. You know, come up with something. If you're into web development, come up with an idea, something that you want to solve. It could be, you know, I don't know. Maybe you want to make like a rating system for movies, you know, based on IMDb or something. You know, come up with a project and then just work on it slowly over time. And that's how you'll learn new technology, and that's how you'll build a really cool project that you can then use in your portfolio. And when you're in a job interview, you say, oh, by the way, look at this really cool thing I built. And believe me, like the hiring manager is going to take that and take notice and be like, oh, this guy did something pretty cool, you know. And oh, we can look at his code and we can see his source code and we can see how he attacked the problem and look at his logic. And so I'm a fan of that because I mean, when I'm hiring people, you know, I much prefer someone who comes in with a project or something they're excited about that they've worked on than just a resume that's, you know, got a bunch of you know, certificates or something, right? You know, it doesn't really mean much to me. So. Anything else? One more? All right, one more.
What's it take for a business student to land a job for a tech startup? Because I think for engineers and IST it's really easy. But
Yeah, great question. What does it take for a business student to land a job at a startup? You know, there are a couple different ways to look at it. I think there's a lot of opportunity for business students. I mean, we have a whole business development team, you know, based in New York City, and you know, we've got some great folks, you know, that work there that did, you know, on the business side of things. Again, same thing. You just show that you've got a passion for that space. You know, come in if you're going to an interview, come in prepared. I can't tell you how many people I've interviewed that haven't even built a Weebly site. It's like, are you kidding me? Like you're coming in for an interview, you just got to at least try the platform, right? So just come in with a you know, really good understanding of the business. Maybe come in with ideas like, hey, look, I think you guys are doing this. This is what I see you doing in the affiliate marketing space, and I think, you know, we can do partnerships with these other businesses, and we can help drive more revenue. And just, you know, just think about it. You know, come in with some ideas, and yeah, show that you're passionate about it. Cool, awesome. Well, thanks a lot, guys. Yeah, it's fun being here, and I'll be hanging around. So if you have any questions, you want to talk kind of one-on-one, you know, I'm happy to chat. So thanks again.